Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to another episode of Our Drunken History with Zach and Travis. Today we are going to be talking about a city that Trav and I both have lived in twice. we liked it so much we went back for a second time.
For sure, second helpings on that.
That's right. We're talking about good old Sin City, the entertainment capital of the world, Las Vegas, Nevada. On the Aviators after Howard Hughes, which I believe you have.
All right, so do we want to go into the Howard Hughes spiel real quick on this? Yeah. So talking about the Las Vegas Aviators. So the Aviators, if people don't know, one of the big prominent figures in Las Vegas history was Howard Hughes. And if you know anything, so Zach and I both were in the Air Force. We're both aviation history buffs. We both love aircraft and anything to do with aircraft.
Yeah, we're aviation nerds.
Aviation nerds and history. Howard Hughes was like the godfather of a lot of aviation history, and he pioneered. So you don't know, Howard Hughes, which this is actually a really nerdy fact or statistic. Howard Hughes invented the flush mount rivet. So
I did not know that.
So.
Seriously,
if anybody of you have ever seen like building any kind of structure out of sheet metal, and you have rivets and you're riveting the sheet metal together, it's like a dome structure on each side of the sheet metal. Well, Howard Hughes at one point in his aviation engineering career was trying to set speed records. He was wanting to build aircraft to go faster and higher and all that, and he realized if you sand those domed rivets flush with the skin of the aircraft, you reduce
drag.
A lot less drag. Because you think an aircraft and a rivet every 3 inches on an aircraft skin, you've got thousands of rivets on an aircraft. Well, if you sand all those smooth, where those rivets are smooth with the aircraft skin, you've reduced like a third of the drag on the aircraft. So the aircraft gets a lot faster, a lot more efficient, a lot less fuel, and you're getting to your destination faster. So he pioneered the flush mount rivet on for sheet metal on aircraft.
It's incredible.
Yeah. So if you look at aircraft from like say the World War II era, and you do a zoom in picture of the sheet metal panels, you can see all the circle rivets sticking out of the skin. And then you look at like a jet aircraft from the 1950s, even though it's a primitive jet aircraft from the 50s era. Super smooth. And then he was part of that, where they thought of doing the smooth mount, flush mount, countersunk rivets on sheet metal. So that's a whole nother rabbit hole. So aside from the aviation genius that Howard Hughes was, part of that was he was thought to be kind of crazy in his later years, or they called him eccentric. We talked about that later on in the later years.
Rich people are eccentric and poor people are crazy.
Yeah, exactly. So he was eccentric. Some of the decisions, so there's a lot of controversy depending on who you talk to about his latter part of his career in aviation. And he founded TWA Airlines, Transworld Airlines.
I did not know that either.
So he made some decisions, and the airline at the time was not making very much money, but he put forth a ton of money and a ton of investment into jet aircraft in TWA. Back then, it was propeller-driven aircraft.
Yeah.
He was trying to push the civilian aircraft transport era into jet aircraft.
Yeah.
Jets are super expensive. And so at the time, TWA, it was a publicly traded company. They felt, whoever the experts were that was on the board of directors of TWA, felt like Howard Hughes was making poor decisions for the company. So they voted to oust him as the head of the company. So they filed a lawsuit basically against Howard Hughes, and they said he had to step down as the CEO, and by stepping down, he would sell his majority ownership of TWA Airlines. Well, so at the time, so that was another thing I thought was interesting. Howard Hughes was written the at the time, the largest personal check ever written to an individual in American history. And it was like a little over $250 million of a check that they wrote, TWA wrote Howard Hughes for his portion of the company. So this is in the early, I think this is in 1960, 1961.
Yeah.
So I think inflation-wise, that's like $800 million, something like that nowadays compared to. So they wrote him a check for $250 million and told him to go away. And he's like, all right. So then he was an investor. He's a business guy. And at the time, U.S. tax law, and I think it still is now, if you don't reinvest that money from stock within a certain amount of time, you have to count that as income.
Yeah.
He was trying to avoid those income taxes off of a $250 million check.
Oh, yeah.
So he was looking for investments to invest that money into. Well, at the time, let me look this up real quick. There was a guy that was like the coordinator of Las Vegas, and Hank Greenspun. He was the founder of the Las Vegas Sun, the newspaper.
Yeah.
He knew Howard Hughes kind of on a social level at the time, and basically convinced him to move to Las Vegas and to invest his money in Las Vegas. So so if you want to rewind just a little bit, so prior to all this stuff happening, Howard Hughes was in a pretty bad plane accident, and he had built this experimental aircraft, and he was the pilot of the aircraft, and it crashed, and he got pretty bad injured in this crash, and he was basically had chronic pain from this aircraft crash, and so his doctors basically had prescribed him opiates for this crash.
Yeah.
And
so with the VA?
Kind of pretty much, yeah. So he was. So there's a lot of talk about how he was crazy toward the end of his life, and very eccentric, and he was a little bit off. He was OCD, which now at the time it's kind of normal to be diagnosed with OCD. At the time it wasn't. But they think that the opiates and the painkillers he was on kind of accentuated the OCD tendencies that he had. But so basically, the Greenspan convinced Howard Hughes to move to Vegas and invest his money in Vegas. So going back to the Desert Inn, one of the first resorts on the Las Vegas Strip, he had actually talked to the Sands. And there was another place he had talked to before about because of his injuries and his pain, he didn't like being around a lot of people. He wanted to kind of be isolated, and some of the casinos didn't want to accommodate him. He didn't really have a place to live there, so he wanted to move into a hotel room when he first moved there. But some of the casinos didn't want to accommodate him. But the owner at the time of the Desert Inn said, "Yeah, we'll take you." And he rented out the top floor and the floor below that. I think the top floor is the 9th floor and then the 8th floor. He rented out the entire 8th and 9th floor of the whole casino for himself. And he moved into the hotel. So, and he was supposed to, it was like an agreement with the hotel owner. He was going to live there for a month.
Yeah.
Until he found a place to live. Well, he was kind of eccentric at the time. And he wasn't very social and all that, and he kind of liked where he was in his situation. So he applied for a few extensions. He was supposed to stay there for a month, but then it turned into 2 months. Then it turned into 3 months, and then so finally the owner of the casino said, "Hey, we appreciate you being here, but you're costing us money because you're taking up all these high roller suites.
Yeah. And
you're not gambling because you're staying in your room this whole time." And then, but Hughes, this is like the ultimate power play move. So the casino owner was like, you need to leave because I'm losing money because you're taking these rooms. And they were like, well, how much do you just want for the casino? And the casino at the time, the Desert Inn, was valued at about $6 million. And this is in the early 1960s. And the casino owner had mob ties. So and at the time, we haven't gotten to it too much, but at the time, the IRS and the FBI and the U.S. government was really starting to crack down on the mob ties. Yeah. And anybody with a mob that had to do with casinos was actually looking to liquidate their assets with the casinos in Vegas because they were trying to get out of the microscope of the government. Yeah. Well, so the guy that owned the Desert Inn was like, I'll take $14 million for the Desert Inn. It gave him like this inflated price and Hughes was like, all right, I'll take it. So instead of getting kicked out and evicted from the casino, he just bought the place and lived there.
That's incredible.
Yeah. So he just pulled this freaking big dick move and bought the casino.
I'll have my house.
Yeah, have my house. So he bought the casino and lived there. And so then he's like, holy shit, I can just buy these places? So he had, Howard Hughes had his right-hand man, and his guy was a prior Secret Service agent and a prior FBI agent. He was like his private security, private public, or personal assistant. And he said, well, shit, I just bought this casino. Let's go buy some more shit. I've got $300 million I need to spend before the IRS charges me on taxes.
Takes my shit, yeah.
So let's start buying real estate. Let's start buying casinos. So then he just started buying casinos and buying property and buying all this stuff all over. So at one point, Howard Hughes was the largest landowner in Nevada, period. He owned thousands of acres in the Las Vegas Valley, plus several casinos. And then so when the Stardust Casino, when Wynn came up to buy it, when the Stardust came up for sale, Hughes wanted to buy it. And at the time, he owned so much property in Las Vegas that the FCC, or not the FCC, the SCC, the U.S. Securities Exchange Commission, denied his request to buy the Stardust because he owns so many hotel rooms in Las Vegas that it would have, if he would have bought the Stardust, it would have created a monopoly that Howard Hughes had owned, and he would have owned a majority of hotel rooms in Vegas, and it would have caused an antitrust situation. So they denied his bid to own the Stardust.
That's ridiculous.
Yeah. So he had bought so much property and so many, and he bought. There was a casino at the time right next to the Desert Inn. It's called the Silver Slipper.
Yeah.
And the Silver Slipper had this big billboard on top. And it was a big silver high heel shoe, like revolving around the. He bought the Silver Slipper casino and hotel because he didn't like the shoe. He said somebody could live in that shoe and spy on him from the shoe. So as soon as he bought the shoe, or the casino, the shoe billboard quit spinning and was like shut down and cordoned off because that way he was kind of nervous and kind of paranoid in his later years that he was afraid of people spying on him and different things so he bought stuff just to shut it down. And there was like a running joke that even Sinatra, like one of the when he started the show, he always drank the Jack Daniels. He had a drink in his hand, and he said the only reason I'm having a drink of Jack in my hand is because Howard Hughes hasn't bought it yet.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and so he bought all this property land. So one of the things people from that live in Southern Nevada right now and live in Las Vegas in the Las Vegas Valley, live in the Summerlin community.
Yeah.
The whole city, basically, is Summerlin. Summerlin is an incorporated city in the Las Vegas Valley.
That's where I live.
Was named after Howard Hughes' grandmother.
Summerlin?
It was named, the Summerlin community was named after Howard Hughes' grandmother, Jean Summerlin.
Oh, okay.
So
yeah.
So at the time,
there's a lot of good golf courses in Summerlin.
Yeah. So at the time, Howard uses his long-term vision for that area. He was wanting to build a huge international airport with a community basically encompassing the airport and wanting a global community in Las Vegas around that. And he passed away before he could make that a vision. And like the company that his heirs finished later in life developed the Summerlin community, developed some other the Howard Hughes Corporation, now what's known as now, was derived from some of his envisions from that era. But yeah, he had a so going back to
pee so bad.
Okay, let's go pee again. All right, yeah. So red, white, and blue.
I'm drinking 2 drinks here.
Red, white, blue beer. All right, so
I'm gonna have to just. I'm getting drunk.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I'm getting hosed in this one. Yeah.
I think Travis is going to spend the night at my house tonight.
I'm going to sleep in that recliner when you go to bed. I'm just going to lay out here in the shed and freaking...
I'm locking you in. Mike call me tomorrow and be like, "Here, where's Travis?" I'm like, I don't fucking know.
He's in the shed somewhere. Oh shit, he's in the shed.
It's hot as fuck in there.
You lock me in the shed like you taped that guy to the chair.
I don't know what you're talking about.
Oh man. Okay, so as eccentric as he was, they credit Howard Hughes with actually bringing in or ushering in the corporate area of Las Vegas, or the corporate era of Las Vegas. So Howard Hughes, like we was talking about, he was eccentric. He, at that time in his life, he was in pain, so he was self-medicating a lot. He was on opiates, he was on alcohol. He was self-medicating to the extreme at the point.
Yeah.
He was also OCD and a germaphobe, so he did not want to be around people, period.
I have a brother like that.
Well, so at the time, so when he bought the Desert Inn, so this whole incident where like, hey, what do you want for it? I want $14 million, and he bought it. Well, shit, now Howard Hughes owns the Desert Inn, and he has to go buy or apply for a gaming license from the Nevada Gaming Commission.
Yeah.
And at the time, the rule was you have to apply in person before the Nevada Gaming Commission for your gaming license to operate a casino.
Right.
Well, Howard Hughes is like, fuck that shit, I ain't going out in public. And so at the time, it was McCarran, the one of the state senators at the time that McCarran Airport is named after now.
Yeah.
Was him and some other prominent political figures of the Las Vegas and the Nevada area basically campaigned on Hughes's behalf. Like, hey, this guy he has been a prominent figure in the U.S. government, the U.S. military, the Defense Department in World War II and all that. He is a respectable citizen, because part of this thing was the appearing before the commission in person was as almost a background check and an integrity check, because they were trying to weed out some of the mob and the mafia ties and stuff. And they said, well, it's Howard Hughes, so you can trust him. He doesn't have to appear in person. So they granted him basically a waiver to apply in person from the Nevada Gaming Commission to get his gaming license for the Desert Inn. Well, so then after that, there was other companies that wanted to buy casinos and buy hotels in the Nevada area, in the southern Nevada, Las Vegas area, and they used that precedent then that Howard Hughes had set, that because then it was the majority owner of the company had to apply in person. Well, then they allowed it to where a company representative or just the company in general had to apply for the permit, not just the owner. So then that ushered in the area of corporate or conglomerate ownership of these casino resorts in Vegas, and actually what they think helped usher out the era of the mob ownership, because you had these guys that were mafia and mob ties that were owning these casinos, and that led to the Mirages and the Bellagio's and stuff, these big mega resorts that were corporate owned versus the personal owned casinos.
Yeah, because as much power and money as the mob had, corporate America is a much bigger machine.
Well, at the time when Howard Hughes came into power in Vegas, the FBI, the IRS, and other government agencies were really trying to crack down on the mob and mafia ties, because basically the government was out for their cut, and the mafia was cutting profit for their income, and they weren't paying their taxes.
Yeah.
So, the government, they're wanting to get their tax money, and that's all it really boiled down to, was the mafia wasn't paying their taxes, so they were trying to get rid of them so these corporations could come in and pay their taxes.
Right, yeah.
And the government could get their cut.
Yeah.
The government was just looking for their cut out of it, really, is all it was.
Shocker.
And it ushered out the mafia era, and it ushered in the corporate area of the Bellagios and the Mirages.
The Steve Wynn's.
And the Steve Wynn's, and the Sheldon Adelsons, and all those. The Maloofs, yeah. And so now, that's where you get some of these big mega resorts now. And really, it all courtesy of Howard Hughes. Yeah. And his eccentricness and not wanting to go in public.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
It's funny, Vegas has a whole other side that most people don't even know about.
Yeah.
And that's the military side of Vegas.
It's a huge side of it.
So Vegas is such a big tourist destination, and rightfully so. But most people don't know this, that the Nellis Air Force Base range is the largest military complex on planet Earth.
Well, so originally when they first developed the it wasn't the Nellis at the time, it was the Southern Nevada Gunnery Range or whatever they called it before World War II.
Yeah.
It was a 60 by 90 nautical mile area. I mean, that's 60 miles by 90 mile area of open airspace and gunnery range for pilots to learn how to fly and to learn how to operate.
So Nellis Air Force Base opened in 1941 as Las Vegas Army Airfield. It was renamed Las Vegas Army Air Force Base in 1948, and then Nellis Air Force Base in 1949. And they flew P-51 Mustangs as their original aircraft. Prior to that, it was used for training, and it was known as the McCarran Field. It's the home to Red Flag.
Yes.
Which is the largest military exercise in the world. It's a NATO exercise. It's housed there. I've participated in it several times. I'm sure you have.
Well, they have the Red Flag now, which is and then they have Gold Flag, green flag, and then there's one more, I thought. But I think the other one is something with the Army with their because the Army brings out their air defense system out there, the Patriot missiles and stuff like that for air defense systems. So you only have air-to-air training and systems, but then you have the Army with their ground-to-air systems that.
No, I had a good time during Red Flag. You know what I used to do during Red Flag? So ComSec is what they call the cryptographic side of the Air Force, the radio communication security kind of thing. It's basically encrypted voice is all it is. And I was the ComSec responsible officer for the Strike Aircraft Maintenance Unit in Las Vegas, which was cool. Because one of the things that they don't advertise is when you go TDY, nobody wants to do all the paperwork. That was my big job.
Yeah.
At Nellis. And all these different countries and different squadrons from the U.S. would come over and nobody wanted to do the paperwork to get their code.
Nobody likes to do paperwork. And
it sucks. The paperwork sucks. So they would come to me, and they would say, hey, man, we're going to fly here this week. What do we have to do to get all these codes? And I would say, there's a silver Dodge Ram pickup out in the parking lot. And if there just so happened to be a 24-pack in the back of the truck when I get off work, I would do your codes for the week.
That's a pretty good scam to get going right there.
So all the Australians and the French and the Belgians and the Germans and all of NATO, basically, and the Aussies would come out to participate in Red Flag, and I would charge them. I would tell them every day, give me all the planes you want to fly. And I would go down and I would put the codes in their planes. And they would pay me in beer.
That's a good way to do it right there.
It was wonderful. I'm not going to say it was legal. But prosecute me as you may.
I tell you what.
That's how it is in the Air Force.
Let me guess.
The military worldwide, you hook each other up in ways, and then you got to pay the piper.
Let me guess right there. There's the unspoken organization in the military called the E4 Mafia.
The E4 Mafia.
That's probably how that got started.
Pretty much.
Every branch has it, and they have their own expertise that they can do, and it's not stealing; it's strategically acquiring.
Tactical acquisition.
Yeah, that's right.
No, it worked out well for me.
Yeah,
and everybody got what they wanted. At the end of the day, everybody got their codes. Everybody got their beer.
Yeah, that's right.
No, it was nice. Nellis Air Force Base proper is 14,000 acres.
Yeah,
right, which is not small. It's not enormous, but it's not small. But the Nellis Air Force Range is Nellis Air Force Base Range is the largest military complex on the face of the earth. It is 4,531 square miles.
Yeah, you can go out there and one of those things. If you went out there and got lost, nobody'd ever find you. It's so big. Well, they completed over 1,000 nuclear bomb tests. So you got to think how big.
It was 928.
928. So almost 1,000.
I think I have it written down here.
But you got to think how big of a nuclear explosion is, and they could
928. I was right.
And they could detonate a nuclear device on this training area and still not hit a civilian area with it.
So it's actually pretty neat, man. So the Nellis Range is 4,531 square miles, but the restricted airspace is over 7,000 square miles.
Yeah. It encompasses a huge area.
Well, and it encompasses very important areas, such as Creech, Nellis, Tonopah, and Area 51.
Also known as Groom Lake.
If you look on a map, Area 51 is known as Homey Airport or Groom Lake. Yeah. It's administered by Edwards Air Force Base. So, and I'm not going to say that I've ever been there, but it's a test base, is from what I have read and what I know. It's a test base. Can't say anything about aliens. I'm not aware of any aliens.
There's 12 of them there. I saw them.
Yeah, guys. Your guess is as good as mine on that front. But it's a test base. We know that there were. It's where they tested the initial F-117s.
So
the Oxcart A-12, the SR-71s, the B-2s. Any test airframe has probably been there. And one of the most important ones is the stealth helicopters used in the Osama bin Laden.
Yes, and those did not even. Okay, so speaking of that, we'll go down the rabbit hole with that real quick. I really love
rabbit holes.
Rabbit holes and aviation rabbit holes especially. So you talk about the Area 51, F-117s, Tonopah. The F-117s were based out of Tonopah Air Force Base. It wasn't an Air Force Base. It was the
Tonopah Test Range.
Tonopah Test Range, yeah. And
it's a U.S. government, and depending on where you're at in the area, it's either administered by the DoD, Department of Defense, or the DOE, Department of Energy, and it's all nuclear testing. Experimental aircraft.
Yeah.
The whole range is just owned by different people and different plats. But the F-117s were tested at Area 51 and then moved to Tonopah Test Range, which is not all that far from there.
It's like 20 miles. Yeah.
It's kind of cool because there's a plane that flies out of McCarran every day.
The Red Stripe airplanes.
The Red Stripe airplanes are called the Jenny.
Yep.
And they fly north to Tonopah. And then they take the buses into the interior complex of the test range. Make your mind up where that's going.
So the F-117s, it's funny. It's kind of neat because I've worked with several people through my career that worked on the F-117s during the secretive years of the F-117 era. And the F-117s weren't even... They were in development since the late 1960s, early 70s, and they were completely denied the existence until the late 1980s, early 90s, until the Panama incident, or I don't even know if you call it a war.
Battle, maybe?
Battle. Was that Pablo Escobar?
Yeah.
And then finally, they were actually just admitted that they even exist was in like 1989. Yeah. And they were all based out of the Tonopah Test Range, and that was their home base back then.
Have you ever seen one in person?
Yeah. I've sat in one. They're freaking crazy.
You sat in one?
Yeah. Yeah.
Seriously?
Yeah. So they...
Fuck me.
Yeah, it was pretty neat. Well, the thing is, though, too, like, you got to think, so the F-117, as cool as it is, and as stealthy, and what the whole, what do you call it? The aura of it. It's 1960s and 70s technology.
Yeah, no, I know, but
when I was in tech school, I was doing... So my AFSC, my Air Force Specialty code, was F-16 and F-117 avionics. It's F-117 Nighthawk, the stealth bomber, they called it at that time, which was a stealth fighter. That was a whole nother issue. They couldn't pass the funding for another fighter, so they called it a bomber.
Yeah.
Or they couldn't pass funding for a bomber, so they called it a fighter. Yeah. And so during my training, when I was learning how to work on these things, they had F-117 there that actually flew in for an air show. And since we were training and working or learning how to work on them, they gave us permission to go sit in them, and we had to which we had our clearances and all that stuff, and we had to do our NDAs, but it was the F-16 was more advanced avionics wise than an F-117.
Was it middle or fly-by-wire?
So it was middle, but fly-by-wire. It was weird. So
really,
and it was they had it had backup flight controls and stuff like that.
Yeah. So it was like a 15.
Yeah, kind of. And
no, because I was a F-15, A-10, and F-111 and U-2 guy.
Yeah, because the F-117 actually came before F-16s. F-16s were the first true fly-by-wire aircraft. And and a lot of the F-18 that came after that for the Navy was based off of that technology. So F-18's full fly-by-wire. So F-16s. So you had other aircraft that were hybrids that were fly-by-wire. Which is if those of you don't know, fly-by-wire is you're flying your controls almost like a PlayStation or joystick controller. It's electronic signals signaling your flight controls to fly the aircraft.
Yeah, it's actually kind of cool. The initial F-16 controls, they didn't actually move.
No, exactly. They didn't move at all, and it was just force input
Pressure switches.
And it was so counterintuitive that they actually had to put in actual movement into the stick, just to accommodate the pilots, because the pilots would put pressure on the stick and it wouldn't move, and they weren't really accustomed to it because they weren't getting any kind of feedback. So they had to make the actual stick move just for pilot input, so that way.
Which makes perfect sense. If any of you have ever flown or worked on airplanes or whatever, I gotta agree, man. Like, I couldn't handle that. Like, that would fuck with my head.
Yeah, and
that's a good way to cause a crash.
Well, it's crazy because I have on civilian aircraft. It's crazy because that technology has proliferated so much farther now into civilian aircraft. I've taxied aircraft, corporate jets before that use fly-by-wire technology, and on the ground you can drive the jet with your thumb. Like you have your yoke with, you got your pitch and roll and yaw and all that, but you have a little mini PlayStation controller joystick on your yoke, and you can control your nose wheel steering, your throttle.
I'm old school, man. I flew Cessnas.
Yeah.
And I like the foot steering, man.
It's crazy because I have taxied a $50 million jet with my thumb on with. Well, you gotta have your throttles though too, but you think you need all these big controls and all that and these movements, but no, you're just using a little joystick controller on your.
I've taxied about a $12,000 Cessna.
Yeah, and
it had a whole shitload of hours on it, and I did it with my feet.
Yeah, and it started with F-16,
and then, bro, I took off and my ass started getting cold.
Oh yeah,
and I realized I'd never shut the door all the way.
You got a draft in here.
I was like 1,000 feet, and I was like, "Why is my butt cold?"
Oh yeah.
Oh shit, the door ain't closed.
That's what we need to do is do it. We need to do an episode like at the airport one of these days or something.
I'm down.
Yeah,
I'll show you my plane.
Yeah.
I don't own it. I just rented it a couple times.
So yeah, anybody has any suggestions? If you want us to do a on location show one of these days, you can give us some suggestions.
Oh yeah. So back to Nellis, man. So Nellis Air Force Base is a very important base.
Yeah.
Not just because of the tactical aspect of it. It is literally the home of the Air Force fighter pilot. They have Red Flag there. They have WIC, which is Weapons Instructor Course. They have so many different aspects of being a fighter pilot, but it's the home of operational test, which when I was in my last couple of years, my main job was operational test, which is it's the home of
well, Nellis is called the home of the fighter pilot.
It is. It's the home of the fighter pilot, and that's essentially it's the Air Force version of Top Gun.
Well, the like you were saying, the weapons instructor course, that is the Air Force equivalent of Top Gun, because the Air Force will send their top fighter pilots to
the top 4% of fighter pilots in the world,
and they will send them to this course to learn how to. Basically, you're a top fighter pilot in your unit. And whatever unit you're in, whatever Air Force base you're at, they'll send you to this course. And you will learn everything you need to learn to go back to your home unit and then teach your fellow pilots how to be a fighter pilot, basically.
The tactics,
yeah.
But then you go into the test side, and that's the thing that not many people know about.
Yeah.
There's squadrons at Nellis that test prototype avionics, prototype weapons, things that I can't really get into on the podcast here, but it's just really cool shit that you can sleep safely at night.
One of the coolest things I think that was really that I sat in the cockpit of a MiG-29 there at Nellis because there was foreign aircraft that the Air Force had obtained somehow, and they were able to. They use these foreign adversary aircraft to train against our fighter pilots with.
Tactical acquisition.
Yeah.
So that's the thing, is Tonopah Test Range is 200 miles from Las Vegas and was used for the F-117 program initially.
Yeah.
But is now mostly used to test foreign aircraft.
Yeah.
That are tactically acquired.
And that's a whole nother podcast we need to get to, because there are several different instances in U.S. military history, if you guys want to learn about this stuff, where we have went and just stolen other people's shit. Acquired other people's shit and brought it back and used it.
Yeah.
And it's great. I love it.
Absolutely. No, the Nevada National Security Site, formerly known as the Nevada Test Site, was opened in 1951. It's 100 miles from Las Vegas, and it is a nuclear research and testing complex. And over the course of nuclear testing in the United States, it's on 928 nuclear tests. And that was a big draw, actually, which is kind of a weird thing when you think about it, that people on the Strip, it was a thing to go and see mushroom clouds.
You could see the atomic test. I've got there's pictures. If you go to Mount Charleston.
I was just going to say that. Yeah. Up on Mount Charleston, there's a parking lot.
Yeah.
It used to be the thing to go and watch the nuke test.
It was a part of on the northeast side of Mount Charleston, which is just outside of Las Vegas. And you could park and look into the desert, 30 miles, the visibility, and you could watch these nuclear tests.
Yeah.
And that was actually another thing, going back to Howard Hughes and his eccentricness and his pull and his influence with the government and the military. During several of those nuclear tests, he didn't like the noise and the vibrate. Like, these nuclear tests going off could cause earthquakes.
Yeah.
We didn't like it. And he petitioned the U.S. government to move those tests somewhere else so it didn't vibrate his hotel room very bad. Imagine that. You're a guy, it's like, hey, you don't need to detonate that nuke because it's going to mess up my hotel room. And so the U.S. Atomic Agency accommodated him during one test, and they moved it another 100 miles further from Las Vegas than what they normally do. And it really didn't affect the test that much because it still shook Las Vegas, basically what it normally does. So they're like, all right, we're just going to go back to our normal place because it's the same.
It doesn't make a difference.
It doesn't make a difference.
100 miles away.
Yeah. So but Howard Hughes actually got them to detonate an atomic bomb 100 miles further away.
If you got power to move a nuke, like you got some pull.
Yeah.
So you were mostly a Creech.
Yeah.
Correct?
Yeah.
So Creech it's an Air Force base. It used to be called Indian Springs.
And when I first got there, it was still Indian Springs. It was Indian Springs Auxiliary Airfield when I first got there.
Yeah, and it was an armpit of Nellis.
It was basically a divert base. Like if somebody had an emergency, they could land there.
So I got a ride in the F-15, and we flew. It was cool. We flew out from Nellis over Bakersfield, California.
Yeah.
And we flew up into the Sierra Nevada mountains, and we did some cool tricks and shit. And we flew back over Indian Springs, and I actually got to map it.
Yeah.
On a Lantern nav pod. I got to do a map.
Yeah.
A radar map. And I got to do it myself, which was pretty cool.
That's pretty cool. Yeah.
Yeah, it was pretty fucking cool, man. I threw up on my flight. My pilot it was kind of cool because all my buddies in the Air Force knew me as Oz, right?
Yeah.
My last name is Ostermiller. So everybody called me Oz. And my pilot's name was also Oz.
Oh, that's cool.
Which was
the Wizard
neat.
of Oz.
And we took off from Nellis as Duke 2-1 was our call sign. still have the little sheet that's got our flight map and everything. And on the flight on the way back after I had thrown up, we pulled a lot of G's, man.
Oh yeah.
And the thing is G's hurt. I don't know if you guys know what G's are. Wherever you are in the world, 1 G is what you're feeling right now. It's 1 time the force of gravity. And as you basically pull centrifugal force in an aircraft,
or have you ever been on like a roller coaster or a carnival ride,
whatever, it's your G force doubles as your body weight doubles by the force of gravity. So we eventually hit 7.4 Gs was what I maxed out on because we had fuel.
Yeah.
So an F-15 can hit 9 Gs max. We hit 7.4, which it hurt, but it was momentary. So it's not all that bad. Like it fucks you up for a few seconds and then it like releases. But we hit 5 Gs, which if you weigh 200 pounds, which is about what I weighed when I went on this incentive ride. I got a little fatter now. I'm about 225.
I wish I was 225.
Well, at 5 times the force of gravity at 200 pounds, I weigh 1,000 fucking pounds. Which and he kept me this Oz, you fucking dick. You kept me in a 1,000-pound turn for 20 seconds.
Oh man!
And I threw up. That's where I threw up.
Yeah.
And I threw up in my little baggie. They give you a bag at the start of your ride. It's like a dog shit pickup bag.
Yeah.
Yeah, a little dog shit sack. And I threw up in it, and I tied it closed, and we finished our flight. We flew over Indian Springs, and I didn't know what it was. I'd never heard of it at the time. It wasn't like a popular thing. I'd never made the media. And he was like, "Do you see that base?" I was like, "It's Indian Springs. It's a very important base for the future." And I was like, "Oh, whatever, man." Well, then it became the home of the drones.
Yeah.
And no one had known about it. No one knew what it was. But then it hit huge, man. And it's still like the most important drone base in Air Force history.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
And it's like one of those places that nobody knows about, too. But speaking about the F-15s and stuff, like I actually just this last week, I was watching a video of F-15s doing the Mach loop in northern the UK. So, of our UK, like I know the UK and England, the aircraft watching, plane watching, whatever you call it, is a really big pastime there. So, the showing the Mach loop demonstrations through the Lake District of the UK, that's pretty neat. Watching the F-16s, and I actually saw a flight of C-130s fly through that, doing max turns and stuff. Like you have people sitting on a ridge on a mountaintop, looking down on C-130s flying through valleys, yanking and banking. F-15s yanking and banking. You can see the fog wake off the wings and stuff flying through.
It's really cool because so an F-15, they have those very long twin tails.
Yeah,
and it's at some certain aspects of flight, you can see those tails touch.
Yeah,
and it will actually create like a spark shower.
Yeah,
which is
just from the flex of the fuselage.
It's incredible. Yeah. It's incredible how far those can move, man.
Yeah,
it's amazing how those planes fly. No, they're badass. They're badass aircraft, and I don't know if you've ever been anywhere where you are fortunate enough to be high enough to look down on a plane flying. If you ever go up on the Beartooth Plateau, again in Montana, sorry.
I got to bring you back to Montana somehow, right?
I do. It's what I do.
Every episode.
Sorry, bitches. No, you look down on like Cessnas up there flying through the Beartooth Valley, and it's fucking amazing.
Well, see, it's great here.
I could not imagine seeing fighters fly through that. Like it would be such a treasure to watch that. I hope that someday I get to witness that. I don't think it's ever happened.
And I wish I could have done that here because growing up here, before I think it's really what kind of inspired me to join the Air Force was here, or not here necessarily, but where I lived growing up, not far from here is Little Rock Air Force Base, which is the home of the C-130 training base for the Air Force. And the C-130s has been in the Air Force since the 1950s. It's been the prominent cargo aircraft of the Air Force for the last 50 years.
It's a mountain goat, yeah.
Where I lived was a major training corridor. It was like 50 miles away from Little Rock Air Force Base, but the C-130s would fly over my house. I grew up on a farm out in rural Arkansas, and the C-130s flew over my house all the time, like on a daily basis. But there was times they would fly over at literal treetop level.
Yeah,
and they were doing their the combat landings, combat drop training.
Yeah,
and I mean, they would shake pictures off the wall, it felt like there was an earthquake in your house. They would flying over so low and so fast.
Yeah.
And it was incredible because there were some places and sometimes, because where our house was growing up was kind of on a ridge, and certain times you could look down and look parallel and see the C-130 flying across parallel to you or below you.
Yeah.
And like that's a huge aircraft that's flying through a valley below eye level.
Absolutely.
And it was awe-inspiring, especially as a little kid, because as a kid you're like, man, this thing is massive and it is so loud and so powerful.
I had like the G.I. Joe C-130, man.
I did, yeah. I had this. So I've got this right here is what I got, boy. This is...
What the fuck? You look like you're pulling out like fucking testosterone testing.
This is pickle vodka. And they said it tastes like pickle juice. And I know you like pickle in your beer, so I got this shit.
I don't know that I like pickle in my beer, right?
They said it tastes just like sour pickle juice.
Are we doing this?
We can, or it's what you want to do, man.
Don't put that evil on me.
Don't put that evil on you.
Are we doing this? Yeah, fuck it.
All right. So here we go. Let's do this. So this can be like part of like a
Texas Craft sour pickle flavored vodka. Whoever made this shit put their effort in, man.
So here we go. I'll put this right here. Texas Craft. If you can see that. Sour pickle flavored vodka. So I got this
50 proof.
50 proof. So this
Golly.
is I got this because Zach was talking a while back about he likes pickles in his Coors Light and pickles in his beer. So since he liked pickles, I figured he would like a pickle shot. I don't know. So
you figured wrong, sir.
Figured wrong. So I'm gonna. That looks like neon. That looks like you just emptied a glow stick out into a glass. I don't know.
It looks like we're about to vomit.
Oh, it smells like pickles.
Fuck it. I really like that.
That is salty and vinegary and dill pickly. That actually just really, I taste no alcohol in that. That tastes like you took a shot of pickle juice. Is what that tastes like.
I enjoyed that.
That wasn't bad, really, at all. If you like pickles, if you like dill pickles, how about you try some Texas Craft sour pickle flavored vodka? That
was wonderful.
That tasted like a pickle juice shot.
Yeah. I enjoyed that. I felt like I just took a tug off of my olive bottle.
Yeah, that was odd.
Jar.
Yeah.
Whatever. I loved it. I would do that again.
Huh.
Wow.
Yeah.
That was very good.
For odd considering what we went through for this last episode.
It was lovely.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hey, give us some suggestions of what you want us to do out here.
Yeah, man. I'll record my ass cooking the steak. I don't care what you want to see.
Because we're here for you guys. Like, you guys drive our channel. We're here for the subscribers. We're here for the followers.
Yeah.
And we're here to do what you want to see.
Within limits. I'm not getting naked.
Maybe. I mean, everybody has their price, right?
Like, literally, like, well.
I don't know if anybody wants to see this dad bod or not. So
I do. I know I do. I'll put the hand up. No, we're gonna start fucking around outside of this all. And, hopefully we entertain you with our stupidity.
We appreciate you, subscribers.
You guys are great. You're beautiful. We love you being here.
So you guys that are following us on TikTok already, we appreciate you guys. We need your help. Help us get up to our follower count of 1,000 followers, so we can start doing these podcast episodes live on TikTok. We broadcast these live. We're available on YouTube. We're available on any of the major podcast players, pre-recorded. But if you guys want to see the raw, uncut episodes,
stupidity
live, then we need your help. Get us on here so we can show you the behind the scenes episodes of.
We call it wittiness, and you will not call it the same word.
The wittiness, the outtakes, the shit! What the hell are we talking about?
We like to call it the dumb.
Oh man! Or you can count how many pee breaks we take during a 2-hour episode.
Not gonna lie, guys, I got a little bladder. It's like 872.
872.
Yeah, that's the number.
Yeah. So if there's anything you guys want to see, just let us know so we can schedule it and put it on there, and that way we can kind of contribute to what you guys want to see, because we're here to serve you guys. You guys, our show is only possible because of you guys, the fans. So anything that you guys want to see, it is our pleasure to present to you guys.
Hey guys, you guys be safe. Have a good night. Have a driver. Whatever.
Yeah.
Whatever.
Love it. Oh shit. That was good. I love it.
That was fun.